Hello, everyone. Welcome to our What's the Buzz? I'm just going to go on LinkedIn. That takes a second sometimes. Okay, almost ready. We are going live. All right. Welcome, everyone. If you're on Zoom or LinkedIn Live, welcome to our What's the Buzz monthly chat series. So excited today to have Christine Gervais join me. She is the tax expert, can I just say? And of course, it's tax season. So I thought, why not bring on a tax expert to talk about tax? Because that's exciting.
It's always exciting.
I hate doing my taxes every year, that's for sure. I'll tell
I
you
do too,
that.
if I'm being totally honest, but
So today we're talking about the tax law changes and the potential impact it could have on mid-tax season. But first, I would love you to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about you and your background before we get started.
sure, absolutely. So I guess the quickest version of the story, I've had my CPA license for almost 15 years. I'm really specializing in like small business taxes. Our practice does everything soup to nuts. Bookkeeping right through CFO services, tax preparation and strategy. And we have interestingly found our niche in the cannabis world. So that's some of a fun fact about me. And then we were talking before we hopped on other fun facts. We have 6 dogs running around in the background, so
And we
don't
don't hear them at
mind.
all.
Yeah, don't mind that they nap a lot during tax season. They're usually in the office napping. But
Nice.
yeah, so that's the short synopsis. I've been running my own practice since 2016, and really, I love to do stuff like this, the education piece, and really just helping people to feel empowered in an area that we don't always feel very empowered.
I have to agree with you on that. And we were just talking about social media and how LinkedIn always changes its algorithms and all this stuff. Well, taxes, hey, those are always changing and fluctuating. There's always things you got to keep on top of for that too.
Yes, yes, never a dull moment.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So let's dive into the topic. So the current bill before Congress and I'd love for you to talk about the impact it has on the 2023 tax returns.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is let me make sure I get this absolutely right. It has a long name. The Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act of 2024. So, it's a little bit of a mouthful. It has some individual and some business provisions in it. But interestingly, and they don't always do this, but it is happening this year. Some of those provisions would actually impact 2023 tax returns, which we are obviously in the middle of filing.
Mhm.
So the IRS has been accepting returns since the end of January. S corporations partnerships are due this Friday, which makes this bill a little unusual in that if it passes, we could actually see some retroactive changes to returns that are potentially already filed. So some of the big things that people are really paying attention to, I think the biggest one from an individual perspective is the expansion of the child tax credit. So if you remember during pandemic days, we were prepaying some of those child tax
Mhm.
credits to people. There's potential for some of that to come back. The refundable portion of the credit, which means people potentially get some of that credit sent back to them, even if they didn't pay in income taxes. So that's a big deal for some lower income families that might be expanded and they might potentially have some more money coming back to them. And then there's some business changes that are in there as well, which is raising a lot of questions for business owners about whether or not they should or shouldn't be filing their returns or waiting for this bill to pass. So it passed in the House by a very large margin back in January, but the Senate has yet to vote on it. So we're all just sitting here
Sitting
with
and
bated
waiting.
breath. Yes, sitting here waiting. Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's very frustrating. I can tell you that, especially since this is your like job and you have to do this stuff on behalf of other businesses and people have to think about it for their personal life. So you think, well, like we should know this before we actually do something about it.
We should, yeah. So the best advice I think that I've seen so far is that probably the individual taxpayers don't want to wait on this bill to file their tax return. Like if your individual tax return is otherwise ready to go ahead and file it. The IRS has said and I'm not always confident in their what they have to offer us, but I do think that they have a good handle on this. The IRS has said that they have systems in place so that if you are an individual who's already filed your 2023 tax return and then this bill passes and it turns out that you should have received more of that child tax credit or a bigger refund, that they do have a system in place to make those automatic changes rather than people having to file amended returns to take advantage of that. And I think that that one is probably fairly accurate. For the business owners, not so much, because you're looking at potential changes to depreciation deductions, you're looking at potential changes to research and development credits, and those can be a little bit more convoluted. So the advice on that side is that if you are a business owner who is looking at either wanting to take the research and development credit or bumping up against the current depreciation limits and wanting to potentially be able to take more, that it might be better for your business to file an extension and wait to see how this shakes out, rather than having to go backwards and do an amendment. Those ones are not expected to be as automatic.
Oh, of course, but at least, they have a process in place, so I guess that's good. How long does it take usually to get that extension? Do you have to, is
So
it,
the extensions, especially if you're working with a preparer, like I can tell you from our firm perspective, like any of our clients who are not ready, we automatically just e-file those extensions for you. If you are not working with a professional, they're fairly easy to file because they're usually one-page forms and you can fill them out and mail them in, either for yourself individually or for your business. But that's an automatic 6-month extension. The only place that I like to remind people, just in case it's not like a well-known thing, is that it's never an extension of time to pay. So that can be problematic for people too, is that we're filing an extension, which is an extension of time to file, which just means that you have another 6 months to prepare your forms. But if you do owe money, that is expected to still be paid on the original due date of the return. So that can get very confusing
Oh,
and
gosh, yeah.
convoluted for people. Yeah.
So you can wait to file your return and get an
But not wait to
extension,
pay.
but of course not. They want your money right away, regardless. So
Yeah.
it almost feels like, well, why wait? But I guess the caveat there is you pay, you do an extension, you wait to see what the changes are, and then you file, and then they give you a reimbursement if need be, or
Yeah, they'll refund you if need, which a lot of small business owners, and I get it, they don't like that, right? Like
yeah,
I don't want to pay cash out of my small business for something that I don't need to, especially if I don't know how long it's going to be before I potentially get it back, or if I get it back. So the struggle right now is that that's really challenging for us both as preparers trying to help our business owners to make the decision, like what are
Mhm.
we going to do? How are we going to tax plan around this? Because we don't know whether or not this bill is going to pass in the Senate, or if it does pass, if it's going to get changed before it passes. So we just don't have that solid information, which again, it's highly unusual in the middle of a filing season. And what you could see, which is a very common trickle down effect too, that's going to put some extra pressure on the preparers,
Mhm.
just for fun in the middle of tax season,
Of course.
is that if these changes are rolled out, there's always a period between something passing and then us actually seeing those changes live in our software, because all the forms now have to get changed, which means all of the software providers have to have a period of time where they're updating the software to reflect those tax law changes as well. So there's a big lag time in there, that's really outside of really anybody's
Mhm.
control. So it's very, very interesting to see even discussion around these changes so late in a filing season.
Yeah, I bet. And stressful, and you already have a ton of stuff to do. Now you have to worry about that. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Did they give any time frame as to when they would make a decision, or
The general expectation is that the Senate would address it sometime this month. Of course, we're already coming up halfway through March, and we don't have any news or expectations on an actual vote on this yet. There's pressure from both sides of the table because, of course, it's an election year too. So you have some politically charged opinions going into this. Also, that you've got Team Red and Team Blue both wanting to say that, hey, we went to bat for our constituents in terms of making this happen. I think the only, helpful thing is how much support it did receive in the House, and that hopefully what we will see is just as much support in the Senate. At the end of the day, the bill contains a lot that is beneficial to the taxpayers, both individual and business taxpayers. It was a really well done bipartisan bill that put, some things on both sides of the table were being agreed upon. And so really, I think that it's just something that would benefit the general public, and hopefully we'll see that actually come through.
Yeah, that would be great.
It
Although
would,
I'll
it
still be
would.
filing this week no matter what, but
Yes, we're filing all of our returns too. And we're not really encouraging anybody to wait. We'll always, and that's something that people can talk to their preparers about also, like, hey, am I going to incur extra fees to amend later on if there are changes and I do need an amendment, or how does that work? And I always just encourage people, have that open and honest conversation, really ask the questions so that you get a good understanding. Because what you don't want is, you don't want to say, well, I don't want to pay to have the return amended later on, but you're going to pay a bunch of interest and penalties for not knowing what you were supposed to pay in April either. So there's some pros and cons there. You want to make sure that you're well informed.
yes, definitely. I couldn't agree more. It's kind of, but of course it is nerve wracking for everybody we have to wait, but we have to file at the same time. So, last question already, if you can believe that. How should tax pros handle these unknowns? And you kind of talked a little bit about it, but
It,
overall, I'm sure you
yeah.
have some more guidance.
It's definitely tough. And so I obviously always encourage tax professionals to make sure that, like, you're keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on. I think it helps to identify in like a priority order which clients would actually potentially be impacted by this, right? So like if the
Hmm.
IRS is saying, "Hey, listen, the individuals, don't worry about it. We have a system in place to automatically adjust that if changes occur," then I would kind of scratch all of those people off your list and just say, we're not going to worry about any issues with the amended returns. So that should cut your list down to just having to look at your pass through businesses, maybe your C Corps if you're working with them. But that makes the list significantly shorter. And then you can focus on which of our clients are potentially looking at taking the research and development credit, and which of our clients have significant capital investment where they might be hitting those depreciation deduction limits. And that really, really narrows the list for you, so that now you can just focus on helping those specific clients make a decision around, do we extend, do we not extend? If we do an extension, do we need to still make a payment? And that will really just shorten your workload in terms of, okay, this is the group that we need to focus most of the time and attention on getting these answers to. Everything else, I think, will be easier to just go business as usual. And if there's a couple things that need to get changed later on, it's less work than just focus on the ones that are going to be the biggest issues.
Yeah, oh, I like that. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it probably doesn't pertain to all of their companies that they have to file returns for. So definitely narrowing down the list makes it that much better and more of a time saving for everybody. So
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. It can be very time consuming to just have to calculate those extension payments. And so that's the other way you can narrow down the list too, is that if your businesses are in a loss position, maybe this isn't as much of an issue. Maybe you just say, hey, we're going to file an extension. There's nothing due. We'll worry about this later. And that, again, just makes it even more narrow for you to really focus on what returns are going to potentially have a real impact here that we need to be concerned with.
yeah, exactly. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing all
Of
of these
course.
tax tips. I truly do appreciate it. I know you're probably so busy with you being a tax professional dealing with tax
This
season.
was a fun break.
I'm glad I could make it fun for you and have a nice break in the middle of your day for helping me educate and inform everyone about tax season, the tax changes, and what they need to be aware of when they're filing, whether they're personal or business. So we do appreciate you joining me today on What's the Buzz. Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great day.